Hey guys, welcome to my channel. I hope you're all doing very well. So I just watched RuPaul's Drag Race All Stars 8. Let's talk about it. So yes, we have officially gotten the 8th season of All Stars, the finale of which dropped last week during Barbenheimer week, and I was way too busy, way too tired to do my review for the finale at that point. But I do know that some of you guys were looking forward to hearing my thoughts on All Stars 8, and so I committed to doing a review. Even if this review isn't going to be as long as my regular season 15 review, I still wanted to touch on what happened during All Stars 8, my thoughts on everything, my reaction to the winner, and any other commentary I may have. I have a lot to get off of my chest, so this is also hopefully going to be very cathartic for me, but I also can't wait to hear your thoughts on All Stars 8. So we're going to dive into all of that good stuff, but before we do, as per usual, if you haven't already, please be sure to subscribe to my channel and make sure you turn on your notifications so that you can be told when I upload next. Now without further ado guys, let's get into my thoughts on RuPaul's Drag Race All Stars 8. So first off, to get into some overall thoughts on the season, All Stars 8 had a really big challenge in my mind because it was coming off of the first ever all winners All Stars season, All Stars 7. Oh, that's a lot of All Stars. But yes, All Stars 7 was the first all winners season, and it was truly one of the best seasons of Drag Race that we have ever gotten across all of the different franchises. It was brilliant. In my opinion, it definitely lived up to the all winners hype. I mean, we got some incredible drag being displayed during that season, some amazing looks, iconic challenges, like everything just came together to give us the perfect or almost perfect season of All Stars. So All Stars 8, coming off of the heat of All Stars 7, I mean, she was trembling, like she was nervous, she was trembling, she was scared. You wouldn't know it because the promos for All Stars 8 were really strong. Like, I loved the kind of, old Hollywood inspiration that they went for. I think the queens looked amazing. They clearly spent a ton of money on the outfits that they wore for their promos. So like, they looked astounding. And I think the promotion for All Stars 8 was really strong. But like I said, because it was coming off of such an incredible season like All Stars 7, and also because All Stars 8 basically started like 2 weeks after season 15 of the regular series, like that to me just was not enough breathing room for All Stars 8 to shine, and so it really was dealt a bad hand from all different fronts. Now when it comes to the season itself, taking on board the queens that were invited back and the challenges that we got, the drama, everything that came together for All Stars 8, I would say that even forgetting the fact that All Stars 7 came before it, All Stars 8 was largely underwhelming. I don't think it's going to go down as one of the more iconic seasons of All Stars, and certainly not of Drag Race overall. And I think it's mostly because of the challenges and because of production. I don't think it was down to the queens for the most part, although we'll talk about aspects that were kind of down to the queens. But for me, the challenges just did not give this season. There weren't many standout moments during these challenges. The choice of challenges themselves weren't really innovative and new. Like, it was just more of the same that we've gotten in many other previous seasons of Drag Race at this point. And I know that Drag Race has a pool of challenges that it likes to take from, and you have some staples like Snatch Game and the Rusical that you can always expect, but like there just wasn't enough of a shake up. And then when they did try to shake things up, like the SNL style challenge that they had earlier on in the season, the writing was so weak for that challenge. And it wasn't written by the queens, it was written by the production. The writing was so weak that it was just a wasted opportunity in the end. So I think for the most part, the challenges were chops, honestly. The challenges that come to mind that really stood out to me this season were, one, the Joan Rusical, I think was really good. And two, Forensic Queens. Forensic Queens, okay, I dealt with the case of missing little pancake. I thought that was actually genius. Like that, if this season is remembered for anything apart from the drama, which we'll get into, I think Forensic Queens is the challenge that this season will be remembered for, because that was genuinely magnifique. And it was an improv challenge, so like the production didn't write the script for that one, although it did write an outline clearly for the plot, but it was all on the queens to make that work. And so it just goes to show you that when you give them the ability to be creative and think on their feet, you can really end up with something magical. I also thought that the Carson Kressley roast was pretty good. I don't think anyone really bombed that roast, and it can be so painful to watch queens bomb a roast, so like I'm glad that didn't happen this time around. Obviously some people were funnier than others, but for the most part it was pretty smooth sailing, so I appreciated that. This season's Snatch Game was also pretty good. It was a Snatch Game of Love version, and there were some standout moments here and there, although the majority of the cast really didn't shine for this season's Snatch Game, so I wouldn't really say it was the brightest spot of the show. And then I would say that the supermarket ball was decent. Again, I don't think it was the strongest ball that we have gotten across Drag Race, especially coming off of season 15, which had some really strong ball. Okay. Which had some really great ball. We got good work, okay? Some good work in season 15, and I don't think that this season's ball was as strong, but yeah, it was decent. Unfortunately, I mostly remember the supermarket ball for the atrocious judging, which we'll get into, so that's kind of what sours me on the ball overall, but it was a decent challenge for the season. But again, like, there were very few real standout moments. I really think that the Forensic Queens episode was the best of the season. And then on the flip side of the challenges, you have the judging itself, and I don't think I like the judging that we got in this season of All Stars. I feel like there wasn't a lot of like constructive criticism. I think the judges, the points that were being made were very vague, and again, not as helpful as they have been in the past. The judging has changed over the years, I think, to be a bit more positive, which is a good thing for sure, especially for the queens. But I think sometimes the judging just feels a little bit aimless and very vague, and I can't help but feel like they leave it open on purpose for production to kind of fiddle around with some of the sound bites, because I just do not think that the judges were as engaged with the queens for All Stars 8 as they have been for previous seasons. I just did not see a lot of that connection between the queens, and especially Ru. And also, just in the grand scheme of things, I think that Ru, you know, pumping out these shows left, right and centre, you know, you had season 15, and then 2 weeks later you have All Stars 8, and now they're currently in production for season 16 already. I think that definitely has had an impact on Ru's, you know, judging on the show, and also his like connection with the queens. I feel like that connection has largely been lost, and I think it comes down to the fact that he's filming back to back to back to back, so he's not really engaging with the queens on a deeper level the way that he used to. And I think a perfect example of the impact of this stems from the drama that we got this season. Oh boy. This season had a ton of drama, starting off with the whole deal with Heidi N Closet, where she literally exited the show. She gave up, she quit, okay, and that was, I think, because of a variety of things. I think obviously you have that pressure cooker aspect of the show that's always there, but also the fact that the show was playing with her, and we'll talk about that later when we get to her section, but the show was absolutely playing in her face and trying to give her the delusional edit where she was doing all of the right things, okay, making all of the right moves, but then not getting any acknowledgement from the judges, getting these like low placements or safe placements when in reality she should have been in the, you know, top threes. Like, it was ridiculous at that point in the competition. competition. But I think the nail in the coffin was ultimately the Kandy and Kahanna drama, where you had Kahanna annoyed with Heidi for the way that she was kind of bouncing off of her during Snatch Game of Love. Heidi was really emphasizing the fact that Kahanna was flopping during the challenge and like none of her jokes were working, and she was like, oh, you can't find the joke on the map and that sort of thing. And speaking on that piece of drama, I thought that was part of the game. I actually didn't see the issue with Heidi kind of playing up the fact that Kahanna was flopping. Like it's a competition, you know, and Heidi herself wasn't performing the best, and so it makes sense that she wanted to lean on someone else who's doing worse. Like, in comes Kahanna with her terrible performance in Snatch Game, so I was actually like okay with her doing that. And obviously it wouldn't feel great for Kahanna, but that's mostly because she's already insecure about her comedic abilities. So like taking it out on Heidi to me was just a little bit unfair, because again, it's within the context of a competition where 200 grand is on the line. Like I really don't think that Heidi was playing too dirty here. Like but anywho, then you have the flip side of this argument with Kandy, where it was revealed, you know, the big drama, the big tea that Heidi was, you know, hiding in the closet, I guess, was that Kandy said that she wanted to get rid of Jimbo, and if she had the opportunity to do so, she would. And I remember when this episode dropped and I was like, how is this a big deal? Like, how is this breaking news? Duh. Like, anyone with half a brain cell would want to get rid of Jimbo. Even at that point in the competition, she was a front runner. So, like, the idea that this was some kind of, like, the tea, the secret, the gag, the reveal was that Kandy wanted to get rid of Jimbo. I was like, well, yeah, anyone with sense would want to get rid of Jimbo. Like, I genuinely did not understand why it was such a big deal. I understood why Kandy didn't want to get out, to be fair, because she was supposed to be in an alliance with Jimbo, and I didn't expect her to respect that alliance, mind you, but she did in the end, so I guess good for her. So yeah, Kandy was supposed to be in an alliance with Jimbo, and so saying that she would get rid of Jimbo to Alexis was underhanded for sure, but it should not have been like this big revelation that it was made out to be on the show, because like anyone with half a brain cell who wants to win 200 grand would try and get rid of the person who's currently the front runner, especially when it is RuPaul's best friend race and you're able to make these, you know, alliances in order to get ahead, and also you're able to vote out people who you see as a threat in order to get ahead. Like that's literally the whole purpose of the All Stars game. So the idea that Heidi revealing this information would just be such a big deal just made no sense to me. Maybe it was the producers trying to make it a bigger deal than it actually was. But then again, Heidi actually quit. So like, it was a big deal amongst them, I guess. I don't know why though. Because to me, I would say to Jimbo's face, I'll be like, Jimbo, you've won like twice. I don't know if it was twice at that point, but you keep winning. So yeah, I would try and get rid of you. And maybe I'd be voted out the same week, I don't know. But then you also had some other drama, which I can't even remember at this point. You also had Kahanna trying to leave, though. That was something that I remembered. And that mostly stemmed from there being another comedy challenge, which she was insecure about. It was the Forensic Queens episode, actually, where she was about to leave. And then Ru had to come in and talk to the girls. She really had to give it to them straight and be like, you guys are professional. Like, you are on the show. You have the opportunity to display your drag to the whole world. Don't waste it just because you're feeling some type of way on this day. Like, you might end up regretting it. I think it was a good thing that Ru came to talk to the queens to address some of the insecurities and the, you know, emotional outbursts that they were experiencing, like Alexis crying all the time, every day. Literally, Alexis crying every single time her press-on nails fell off or she lost a hair clip. Like, she literally was always crying. But Ru just gave it to them straight, and I appreciated that. Do I think it was somewhat self-serving? Because Ru obviously wants to have a show, and he doesn't want the whole world saying that, you know, Drag Race is evil because all of these queens have left. Yeah, I do think there was a self-serving element to it. But still, I do think it was good to see Ru talking to the girls in this very real way, especially especially because, like I said, there seems to be less of a connection between Ru and the newer queens in these recent seasons. And finally, I just wanted to address my overall thoughts on the fashions, the costumes, the drag that we got to see on the runway, because that is one of my favorite parts of the show. And remember when I said that All Star 7 was so good? Remember when I said that All Star 7 was really just top notch? I think that's yet another way that All Stars 8 kind of let us down, because the runways just weren't runwaying to the level of All Star 7. Like All Star 7, the runways were insane. Like people had money. Okay, the queens had money because they were winners. And they had spent money. I just think of like some of the runways, like the light up runway where everyone had lights all over them and, you know, laser lights and all sorts. There are so many runways from All Star 7 that were just so brilliant and so iconic. I mean, you had Shea Coulee, so like obviously you're gonna get iconic. Obviously you're gonna get brilliant, but all of the queens really turned up and turned out for All Star 7. And in comparison, All Stars 8 just left me feeling very underwhelmed. I was like, oh, this isn't quite what I'm used to now. I genuinely think that there were better runways in regular old season 15. Truly, especially with, you know, Sasha Colby and London Luxe Noir. Like, there were definitely better runways in that season in comparison to All Stars 8. And not to mention that they introduced the idea of the Fame Games, right? Which was something that a lot of people said would have been great for season 15. The Fame Games was supposed to be something that allowed the queens to display their runway looks even after they'd been eliminated, and for the chance to win $50,000. So at least they wouldn't be out of the game even if they're eliminated earlier on in the season, and you know, all of the money that they spent on their package could actually be put to good use. Like, I think it was a really great idea, but clearly it wasn't the right season to do this because the queens' runways for the Fame Games weren't even hitting like we thought they would. Okay, so those are my overall thoughts on All Stars 8. Now let's get into my thoughts on each of the individual queens. We're gonna go through this real quick, real fast. And like I said, I'm gonna try and do this in order of roughly least favorite to favorite. But I didn't hate anyone on this cast by any means. But you know, there were some people that were more memorable than others. Starting us off, we have Monica Beverly Hills. Nothing personal against her, but I just didn't find her to be a captivating personality for television. So even though I think, you know, she's likely an amazing queen to see in person, and she, you know, is very talented, and she probably has greater stage presence in person, but just through TV and just through the Drag Race format, she didn't shine as much as I wanted her to. And also the runway looks that she brought for her package just weren't hitting, you know. There was one purple look that I remember just being stunned by. I was like, oh my god, that is stunning. But for the most part, the looks are really underwhelming, and she was the first one out. And I did, you know, catch some of her Fame Games looks, and they were just continually underwhelming for the runways. So I just don't think it really worked out for Monica this time around. She didn't have a big enough personality to leave a lasting impact. Although speaking of leaving a lasting impact, you know, one impact that she did have was during the talent show for the Fame Games, where she had the Not a Soul Can Clock song. And I remember watching that in the episode and being like, this is just, I don't even, like, this is nothing. Like, to me, it was just nothing. Like, give us nothing, girl. Like, literally, that's what it was. But the internet loved it, okay? Like, sometimes the internet loves these things when the girls are giving low energy, literally just very low talent, if I'm being honest. Sometimes the internet loves it, especially because it has a catchy tune and the words are very repetitive and easy to remember and also easy to misunderstand. So they latched on, and you know, she was charting on Spotify and everything, so good for her. She had like a Lucy LaDuca moment. But for me, like, I could have watched that performance again. Like, And then next up we have Naysha Lopez, which, you know, like I said, is an order of exits, and it's pretty much the same thing with Naysha. I don't think her personality really stood out this season, which is weird because I have caught a couple of episodes of Roscoe's, which is when the queens kind of go in live into this bar and they watch the episode of Drag Race and they kind of comment on it and review it, and she seems like a really great host on that show, so I was surprised to see how underwhelming she was on the actual, you know, Drag Race show, but I just don't think that the producers or whoever gave her a chance to shine, perhaps because they didn't see her going the distance, and so she was largely in the background even in the earlier episodes, and unfortunately she didn't have her standout moment. Unlike Monica, she didn't have a Not a Soul Can Clock talent moment, but she did have better drag in my opinion, even if it was quite repetitive, especially as the episodes went on, and so I'm gonna put her slightly above Monica for that. Next up on my ranking we have Jaymes Mansfield. She actually stayed on longer than some of the other queens, which we'll talk about in a second, but I put her lower down because I just found her drag to be a little bit repetitive. Again, like, this is completely separate from, you know, a real life experience of seeing the drag queen. For me, I'm just looking at it from a Drag Race perspective where it's a competition and you're oftentimes expected to kind of mix things up a bit, and I just didn't feel like Jaymes Mansfield did a lot of mixing anything up. She kind of stuck to her shtick of the 1950s housewife with the, you know, sweet innocent voice, and I think it got a little bit boring over time. I just felt like I knew what she was going to bring to the table for the challenges and also for the runways, and yeah, it just got a bit boring and repetitive. So as a competitor, I just didn't find her to be the most captivating. I do think she had a standout moment where she came in as Jennifer Coolidge for the Snatch Game of Love. I think that was definitely a great moment for her this season, and she also did decently well in the Rusical, so that was good. She ended up winning alongside LaLa Ri for the talent show, the Fame Games talent show, which I think was fine. I disagreed with that. No, I'll say it. I disagreed with her co-winning like that. But listen, I believe in her original season she was first out, so she definitely did much better this time around, and that's really iconic of her. And she did have some really cool looks as well. Not to say that she never looked good, it's just that I got a little bit bored after the episodes went on. And speaking of kind of getting bored, next up we have Kahanna Montrese. Listen, okay, her runways were stunning. Her runways were beautiful, but they were always giving Vegas showgirl. You know what I mean? Like, it was all within the same genre, same sentence, different fonts. Yeah, that was my issue with her runways, is that even though they were all stunning, I can't even imagine how many hours of craftsmanship and how expensive they must have been. Oh, please. But just from a Drag Race viewer's perspective, me sitting there on my sofa eating my popcorn and watching, right? I would say that it became a little bit predictable for me as a viewer, and so I kind of knocked off points for that. But then aside from the runways, her performances in the challenges were just not it. Like, it just wasn't, she just wasn't charismatic. I mean, she lacked the charisma. She really wasn't able to get those comedic beats. And to me, the idea of, like, you know, being a queen on All Stars and not really being able to do like any comedy challenges is a little bit sus, because it's like, you know what's up, sis. Like, you know what's up. You know what Drag Race is. There's 15 seasons of the main series alone, not even counting the foreign franchises and the All Stars season. So, like, you should know what the tea is by now. Like, it's the same with the girls who can't sew. Like, you should know what you're getting yourself into, especially if you're an all-star. You've literally done this before. So I just couldn't get behind the whole, oh, I'm bad at comedy challenges thing, because it's like, sis, I don't know what to tell you. Like, you have to make Ru laugh every single season. That's literally one of the objectives of the show. So you shouldn't be shocked. Like, don't act shocked. If you've seen that video, don't act shocked. Okay, don't act shocked. because you know what's good, you know what's gonna happen. So yeah, that was my issue with Kahanna and her performance in this season. It was just like, sis, really? You can't do any comedy challenges? And it's actually a shame because she ended up leaving the season during the Forensic Queens episode, where she actually gave her best performance of the season. So it was actually, you know, like a bit of a shame that she was punished for doing a decent job, but most of the cast did really, really well in that episode, so it was a tough competition. And also she had performed so poorly from previous challenges that just off of track record, they couldn't let her go further. And then next up we have the double bill, the 1-2 punch of Mrs. Kasha Davis and Darienne Lake. These are queens that I wasn't too familiar with going into the season. I did watch their respective seasons, but were they on the same season? I can't remember. But yeah, it was during that time where I was binge watching all of the Drag Race seasons back to back to back, so some of them became a blur to me. But I will say, even though I wasn't familiar with the Queen's Games going into the season, I came to really respect what they had to offer coming out of it, especially because of their performances in the Fame Games. I think they did such a great job with the runways during the Fame Games, and I think if it wasn't essentially a popularity contest, either, you know, Kasha Davis or Darienne Lake would have won the Fame Games, to be fair, just off of the runways, because they were really inventive and creative with each of the categories each week, and I was just surprised at how they really turned it out. Like, they really made an effort and it was great to see. So they had some really great looks there, and it's a shame that they weren't given a greater opportunity to show off their drag in the main season of All Stars 8. Although I did agree with Mrs. Kasha Davis leaving during the supermarket ball, because her look was just a disaster. The look that she made, ooh, it was really bad. And then she tried to rationalize it and be like, oh, it's like a kid's party and everyone's eating everything in a piñata, and I'm just like, sis, what are we talking about here? This is looking like, sis, like, cut the cameras, okay, cut the cameras. It just really was not good. And next up we have Kandy Muse. Yes, Kandy Muse is at number 5 on my list. I was kind of disappointed by Kandy Muse's performance during this season. I felt like for the most part she didn't really give us a lot of standout moments the way that she did in her season. I think it was season 12 or season 14 or something. She didn't give as strong of a performance as her previous season. I feel like because she was already a favourite, that she got away with some less than perfect performances throughout the season and somehow made it to top 2, even though I really did not agree with that top 2. I think in terms of her performances in the challenges, she did do pretty well in some of the comedy challenges, but I mean, for instance, with the Snatch Game, she wasn't a standout for that episode. You know, her character was largely just Kandy Muse in another outfit. And, you know, even with the Forensic Queens, my favorite episode of the season, she did not give a standout performance there as well. Her lollipop was doing a lot of the heavy lifting. Her lollipop was doing all of the heavy lifting, but she was essentially just Kandy Muse in another outfit with a lollipop. So I just feel like Kandy Muse got away with murder, honestly. Like, it kind of annoyed me. And then you even get into her runways, and like, a lot of the runways were just like, okay. You know, like her promo look for All Stars 8 was incredible. Her promo look was insane, out of this world beautiful. But the runways in the actual season are oftentimes just like some leotard, just embellished, okay, with some heels on and a cute wig like that. I just feel like she got away with murder, honestly. Like, she was a favourite from the beginning, and the producers finessed it, you know, bent it, twisted it, turned it, so that she would make it to top 2 and she would be, you know, a runner-up once again as she was in her previous season. But in reality, there was not much about her performance this season that gave me top 2 energy, if I'm being honest. And not to mention the drama and the shadiness kind of put me off her quite a bit during the season. And, you know, seeing how Heidi left the show because of that drama. Like, that didn't sit right with me at all. And I did not forget Kandy Muse's part, you know, in that whole shenanigans. So that definitely left a sour taste in my mouth. But yeah, Kandy Muse wasn't my favorite, but you know who also frustrated me this season? We have our number 4, and that is Alexis Michelle. We all know why Alexis Michelle annoyed the hell out of me this season. Do I even need to say it? First of all, the constant crying. Now, I've heard from, you know, other queens like, you know, Monet and Bob, you know, I always listen to their podcast. So I've heard from them that Alexis Michelle is genuinely like that. Like, she's very sensitive and always cries. So like, I can't say anything about that. I can't make any comments about that. Okay, that's really what she's like. And then you put her in the context of the pressure cooker that is Drag Race, and it's going to get even worse. So like, I understand that. I'm comprehensive towards that. Fine. But there's really no excuse for the other stuff. Like, there's really no excuse for the backstabbing, for the lies, for the betrayal. Like, there's literally no excuse. First of all, you have Heidi trying to get Alexis to back her up when she, you know, talks about the rumor that she heard that Kandy Muse wanted to get rid of Jimbo. And Alexis at first confirms it. She literally was like, yeah, you know, that is what Kandy said. And then Kandy must have given her some look. Kandy must have been like some of this, you know. And then Alexis is like, oh no, actually. And then when Heidi leaves, Alexis has the audacity to start crying. And I'm just like, sis, you literally just betrayed her. You are a Judas. You literally betrayed her. You should have stood up for her if you knew that what she was saying was true. But little did we know that that was just a forecast. That was just foreshadowing for what was to come. An even bigger betrayal against LaLa Ri, her supposed crush of the season. I don't even buy that. Well, maybe she did have a crush on LaLa Ri, but if she did and she still betrayed her like that, it's just very bizarre. It's very strange to me. Alexis Michelle just annoyed the hell out of me. Like, I just could not believe the betrayals, the lies, the backstabbing, the Judas activity that we saw coming out of Alexis. Just such a bizarre personality. And even aside from that, she would tell these like really weird jokes at times, you know, when she was on stage. And yeah, just her sense of humor was off. Very awkward personality. Although I do think she did very, very well in the Snatch game. I actually thought she was my favorite. This is controversial. She was my favorite character in the Snatch game because I liked her more intellectual style of jokes as opposed to like the physical comedy that Jimbo did. We'll talk about it. So I actually really liked her character in Snatch Game, and I thought she was really funny. But then we never got that level of comedy ever again in any of her other performances, especially not during the roast. But she really made my blood boil when she betrayed LaLa Ri like that. Like, I could not believe, no matter how you twist it, turn it, phrase it, whatever, it was a massive betrayal on Alexis Michelle's part, and I would literally never forgive her. LaLa Ri is better than me. She's way better than me, let me tell you that. One thing that puts Alexis Michelle above Kandy is her runways. Her runways were so brilliant. Alexis Michelle looked incredible this season. I can't take that away from her. Like, her runways were stunning. I was excited to see what she would come up with for each category when she would hit the runway. Like, her looks were just absolutely beautiful. And also the face was beat to the gods. The face was, ooh, snatched, like, ooh, like she looked beautiful. So that's one thing that I would say about Alexis Michelle, is that she was giving all-star level drag, especially when it came to the runways. All the other girlies were looking a bit, but Alexis never missed, and so I have to respect that. Next up, we have LaLa Ri. I'm a huge fan of LaLa Ri, okay? I am invested in the LaLa Ri experience. I just think she has a great personality as a queen. Yeah, I think her personality is superb. For Drag Race, she really stood out. And also you could tell that just genuinely in real life, she seems to have a great personality as well. She has the charisma in spades, in buckets, okay? She's an incredible queen to watch and an amazing performer. We didn't get enough chances for her to perform this season as well. Oh, that reminds me, the lip syncs weren't even giving this season. Oh my god, especially because Jimbo kept winning. We'll talk about it in a second. But Jimbo kept winning challenges, and so the lip syncs, unfortunately, necessarily, were awful. So we didn't even get great lip syncs, which is something that season 15 at the very least gave us. So that was also a shame. The lip syncs were not all-star level, and that was very disappointing. But anyway, going back to LaLa Ri, that was never her fault, okay? Because when she was lip syncing, she did a magnificent job. And again, I'm just invested in the LaLa Ri experience. I would love to see her in person one day, because she just has that charisma in buckets. I will say, if there was a downside to LaLa Ri's performance this season, it will probably be her runways. I do think there were a massive improvement on the previous season that she was in. I mean, we all know about we all know about the paper bag dress, okay? Like, it's iconic, but it was also disastrous. So she's definitely done better than that. But, you know, I do think that in comparison to some of the other queens, like Alexis Michelle, and even Kandy, like, I do think LaLa Ri's looks just weren't giving all-star level quite yet. So I think there's still some polishing that needs to be done, and someone needs to snatch away the nude illusion from her hands, because that grip is a little too tight, sis. Like, just let it go. Not every single outfit needs to have a nude illusion in it, but that seems to be her signature. But yeah, I think the looks sometimes were absolutely giving, but a lot of the times there was just something that was a bit off. But honestly, all of my critiques on her runways went right out of the window when I saw her performance in Forensic Queens. Her performance in Forensic Queens was so brilliant. It was so magical. It was a sight to behold. To this day, when I think about All Stars 8, the first thing that comes to mind is LaLa Ri in that golf cart. Driving the golf cart with her legs sticking out, steering the golf cart with her legs. That is the kind of physical comedy I can get behind. That is the kind of comedy, you know, comedic performance that literally just had me rolling on the floor with laughter. Like, that was just such a highlight this season that I have to give it up for LaLa Ri. So not only do we have a great personality, but she absolutely delivered in the comedic performances. I think the one exception was probably the Snatch Game, unfortunately, where she didn't really shine as much. But all of the other comedic performances that she gave were really, really great. And so I think she was definitely a standout this season. And then next up we have Heidi. I was such a huge fan of Heidi N Closet. I loved her in her season. I thought she was hilarious. And then when she, you know, came into this season of the show, I was really excited to see her kind of up her game, up her drag. I mean, the package that she came with was absolutely phenomenal, and I was really looking forward to seeing what she would bring to the table. And from what we saw, she really just hit the nail on the head. She had so much to give, so much to offer, and for some reason the judges just refused to see it, like perhaps because she wasn't the end game that they had in mind, and they were just swerving around her really great performances in order to place her in like safe positions or low positions when she really didn't deserve it. And so I was just as frustrated as she was by this. I could see the tomfoolery at play, like it was so obvious to me. And for instance, like the supermarket ball, I personally think she absolutely should have been in a top placement. She absolutely knocked it out of the park, and even though her final creation wasn't perfect, it did have errors, but in comparison to some of the others, it was so much more innovative and so much more creative. She deserved way more credit than she got in the early part of the season. And so I was really sad to see Heidi go. She was one of the queens that I was most looking forward to, so it really was a bummer for me. So then next up we have my top 2 of the season, and at number 2 we have Jessica Wilde. Jessica Wilde The legend that you are. I didn't even remember much of Jessica Wilde from season 2 because, as I said, I binge watched all of Drag Race last year and the seasons kind of blurred together at one point. But I was delighted to have her back for this season. I thought she was absolutely brilliant. She was so hilarious, especially again during the Forensic Queens episode where she really shot like... She had some of the most iconic lines. If it wasn't for how amazing LaLa Ri was, Jessica Wilde absolutely would have won that challenge. And they could have even been a double win, honestly, because they were both so brilliant and they became so iconic for that. But it wasn't just a one-off because she was also great in the roast as well. Jessica Wilde had a really strong season this season. Like, she really came back to play. She came to win, okay? And she was very competitive. And even though there were a couple of wins that I disagreed with, I like her supermarket ball win. I didn't think that she was the best out of the lot. But still, she absolutely competed very well. You know, her lip sync was iconic, legendary. And she was just such a bright star this season. She had the whole package. She had great looks. She did really well in the challenges. Her confessionals were incredible. so funny, but she was also honest as well. Like, she was one of the real ones that would like tut and roll her eyes when Alexis was crying again. She was just like the perfect candidate to return to Drag Race. Like, this is what you would hope an all-star season would do for a queen who hasn't been on the show for a very long time and has come back after all those years of evolving and, you know, perfecting their craft and preparing for the world to see them once again. I think Jimbo and Jessica absolutely should have been in the final together, and it boggled my mind that the producers decided to back Kandy instead, because to me Jessica was just a home run. Like, she was just so brilliant, and it's a shame that we didn't get to see her compete in the final with Jimbo, even though ultimately it doesn't matter because Jimbo was always going to win, which leads us to the winner of All Stars 8, and that was of course Jimbo, who just blew everyone else out of the water. Now, to be fair, Jimbo has now been on 3 seasons of Drag Race, so she has quite a bit of experience. The other queens have only been on 2, so she has that one leg up from, I think it was UK or Canada versus the world. But it's just crazy how far ahead Jimbo was this season. Like, I think she won 4 times. Like, it really wasn't even close, honestly. And so yeah, she was always going to win ultimately. I think the second that she got that second win, I was like, oh, I think we know what's going on here. And I think ultimately it kind of did a disservice to the show because it felt like it was pretty much a lock that Jimbo would win, and so I became slightly less invested week to week because I already knew what the final outcome would be. And I guess the only question was, you know, how would we get there? And there was some exciting twists and turns here and there, but for the most part, when you already know who's going to win, like with season 15 with Sasha Colby and now with All Stars 8 with Jimbo, it just kind of knocks a lot of the air out of the show, and it makes it a little less exciting. And it can also get a little bit frustrating when you start to see the strings be pulled to enable that queen to win. For instance, in the case of Jimbo, one of her storylines was the fact that she could never win a lip sync, and she was really bad at them. And so she had all of these chances to win because she had, you know, won the challenges, and all she had to do was just, you know, knock out a good lip sync and she could take home 10 grand, but she never managed to do so until of course she finally won when she was lip syncing against Silky Nutmeg Ganache, and it was to Freakazoid by Midnight Star, which is like a song that has clearly been custom chosen, hand picked for Jimbo. So it was kind of like the producers saying, like, sis, if you can't win with this, then I don't know what to tell you. Like, we have done all that we can to prepare you to win this lip sync. So if you can't deliver this one thing, that I don't know what to say. Like, they literally just chose that song for her to make sure that she could win. And you could just see the strings being pulled. So it was kind of frustrating at that point, where there'll be moments where you could see production at work. But listen, all in all, it doesn't change the fact that Jimbo absolutely knocked it out of the park in most aspects, apart from the lip syncs, when it came to her performance in All Stars 8. Her runways were great. They were all-star level. They were innovative and they were clever and just unexpected and exciting to anticipate. Like, her runways were fabulous. And of course, she had the common theme of the comically large breasts. That didn't take away from the fact that she really put a lot of thought and money into the runways to make them different and special each week, which I appreciated. And of course, she knocked it out of the park when it came to her comedic performances in the challenges as well. She wasn't quite as strong in the Forensic Queens episode. That's just because LaLa Ri and Jessica Wilde were even stronger. But for a lot of the other episodes, including the Snatch Game, she was deemed the best of the week. So the results were there. Jimbo absolutely delivered, and you can see how her drag has evolved over the years. And I do think that being on Drag Race, you know, twice before this season definitely gave her an advantage, because she had learned from her previous mistakes. So congratulations to Jimbo, and congratulations to all of the queens that appeared in All Stars 8. This was a very interesting season, even if it wasn't my favorite. And I do think that, you know, this format, the All Stars format, could use a bit of a break. I wouldn't mind if they skipped next year and did All Stars 9 the year after, just to kind of allow us to miss it. You know, I think that's also part of the problem, is that we don't really miss Drag Race anymore because it's always around the corner. And so I think, you know, for the All Stars format, because it was supposed to be a little bit more special than the regular season, it needs to happen every other year, in my opinion, for us to actually miss it and then really look forward to it when it comes around. Because with this current schedule, it just feels like they're passing by left, right and center, and we're not really allowing them to breathe and have a proper impact in the Drag Race universe. So that's it from me, guys. Now that I told you guys my thoughts on RuPaul's Drag Race All Stars 8, it's time for you guys to let me know what you thought of this season down in the comments below. Please be sure to subscribe to catch new videos coming up. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate it, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.